invite Rev Tammy St. Amand.
Thank you, Peter. That was so nice. And how lovely to know that people actually remember some of the things that I say. It's fantastic. So, today we are talking about the sacred. And we're in a month where we're leaning into the idea of the mundane, the sacred, and the profane. And I think probably you're going to hear this over and over again this month, but that really there is no mundane and there is no profane. There is just the sacred. And that's really what I want to lean into today. So I have a quote to begin with from Thich Nhat Hanh. Each thought, each action in the sunlight of awareness becomes sacred. Each thought, each action in the sunlight of awareness becomes sacred. That's my centering thought for today. It's interesting because the very first talk that I did for Center for Spiritual Living Winnipeg in 2011 was called Sacred Setbacks. The idea of leaning into sacredness in whatever form it comes has been a theme of my life. It has been a profound theme of my life, and it has improved my life immeasurably to be able to always see things from the eyes of everything is sacred. You know, we can look at things, we can look at our lives as either everything is mundane, or we can look at our lives as everything is sacred. Same thing with, I think it was Einstein that said, either everything is a miracle or nothing is a miracle. We get to choose. We get to choose how we see our lives. So what Thich Nhat Hanh is saying is that each thought, each action in the sunlight of awareness becomes sacred. And what I would like us to do is just lean into the implications of that a little bit. Because it's not just my thought and my actions and my experiences that become sacred in the sunlight of my own awareness, but in the sunlight of my own awareness, every thought, every action, all of it becomes sacred. Now, I bet you're probably thinking, you know, we can all think of a dozen different things off the top of our heads that don't really feel very sacred. There's lots of stuff in our world these days in particular that feels like it's not very sacred. Well, we're going to work on that today. We're going to think about that today. And you know, just to give a tiny little extra plug for my workshop, if you're having difficulty through the course of this talk and you want to lean into that sacredness more and you want to be able to see through those eyes of sacredness in your whole life, this workshop is another way that can help you to do that. So, but let's continue on. Seeing sacredness is a choice. It's a practice and it's life-changing. So how do we do this? Well, there are a few things that I want to lean into today. So let's talk about the 3 points I'm going to make. Firstly, this is no secret to any of us here, I don't think. There's only one thing happening, and that is the divine. This is something that all New Thought teachings teach. There is only one thing happening. That is spirit, that is the divine, that is the infinite source of life, it is the consciousness of oneness. And if that is the only thing that is happening, if that is the only thing that is experiencing anything through me, through you, as you, in the oneness and wholeness of life, then there cannot be anything that is not sacred. Because if we believe the oneness of the universe to be the sacred source of all that is, then we believe that all that is sacred. We have to. Ernest Holmes wrote, "We are compelled to think of spirit either as apart from us or within us. If apart from us, there is no way to find it. If within us, there is no escaping the divine fact. Unfoldment and not search is what we need. We don't need to search for it. We don't need to look for it. We don't need to dig for it. We don't need to make it happen. We just need to be in an awareness that it is. We need to be in an awareness that the unfoldment of good is happening, that the unfoldment of sacredness is happening right here and now, regardless of what it looks like." One of my favorite sayings that I don't know where I got it from. It might have been me. I don't know. It's just my favorite saying is, "This is just what it looks like on the road to awesome." This is just what it looks like in the unfoldment of sacredness. Whatever this is just what it looks like in the unfoldment of sacredness within the world, within our universe. So there's been many people throughout all the time who have had what's called a numinous experience, an experience of the sacred, where, maybe it's in just the way the light hits the tree, or maybe it's in the drop of rain that falls, that you see within that, the experience of the allness of life. Or maybe, like myself, it was just relaxing in the bathtub, and suddenly I felt at one with the entire universe, and I felt my consciousness expanding outward at a rate of exponential speed, faster and faster and faster out into the universe. And when I came back, everything was different. These are experiences that happen to people all over the world and through all of time. I remember a story that my mom used to tell about when my grandpa died. He died long before I was born, so I never knew him. But my mom said he was on his deathbed. He was in his bed. The family was gathered around. He suddenly smiled with this beautiful, huge smile, and his face lit up like he shone. And he said, open the window now." And so somebody opened the window, and then he was gone. And everybody around that bed thought, I bet he saw Jesus. Coming from a deeply Christian background, that would have been what their thought was. I think he must have seen Jesus out that window. It was just a window. You can look at life as if it's just a window, or you can look at life as if Jesus is standing out there, or the Buddha, or Kuan Yin, or the Tao itself. It doesn't matter how the events unfold. And there's two perspectives in that story. Firstly, my grandfather, who saw something that wasn't the window. And secondly, all of the people around him, that instead of saying, oh, he was having some deathbed delusion, said he saw the Creator. He saw his Maker. This is an experience of the sacred. We can choose to see things from the eyes of sacredness. We can choose to see our life from the eyes of sacredness every day, every moment, not just in those extraordinary moments. We can choose to see that all the time. We can choose to pause in this moment and say, what a glorious thing it is to be alive right here, right now. I get to breathe. I get to breathe. I get to look at all your lovely faces. I get to smile because I choose to. This moment is sacred. It's the same moment as happens every week. Somebody stands up here and talks. But this moment is sacred. So, It's a choice. There's a way of looking at our past that is also about looking at sacredness. There's a way of looking at where we've come from in our life. When we tell stories about our lives and where we came from and who we are and who we think we are, we can tell the stories that are going to cause us pain and suffering. We can tell the stories that are going to be a story of victimhood or of all the bad things in the world, or we can tell the story of the sacred life that we get to live. And we can tell the story of our victory in being in this moment after all of those other moments. And we can tell the story of our expansiveness and how much we have learned and grown over our lifetime. We can look into the lives that we've led and decide that they have been sacred in every single moment, or we can choose to tell the story of struggle. Back many, many years ago now, in 1995, my sister, one of my older sisters, passed away. And it wrecked me in that moment. It did. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. It wrecked me for a while. Because Brenda, my sister, was not just my sister. She was also the one person that understood the crazy spiritual ideas that were going on in my mind. And I didn't think that anybody else in the world understood me. Thank heavens for Centers for Spiritual Living. Oh my goodness, because you people get me. This is a wonderful thing. So I didn't know that back then, though. And you know what? If Brenda hadn't passed away, I would have leaned on Brenda the entire time through my lifetime, thinking she was the only person, because she left to go on to bigger and more beautiful and more expansive ways of being in her consciousness. Because she was able to leave, I was able to find my own path. I was able to find my way to the Centers for Spiritual Living. I was able to find my way to teachings of New Thought and of all kinds of other religious thoughts that I took to be my own joy, into my own life, into my own sacred practices, because all of these pieces of beauty, all of these pieces of light came to me when I was looking for them. And I wouldn't have looked for them if I already thought I had all that I needed. Isn't that the way our lives are? That sometimes the only reason why we look for something more is because we realize that there's something that we need, that there's something that is uncomfortable in this moment. It's called divine discontent. Divine discontent. This is when my life doesn't feel very good. I move into finding something better or creating something better for myself. And when I do this, I have to recognize that that discontent, however awful it might have felt, was an absolute gift. It was sacred. How many times in your life have you gone through things that were awful and then come out the other side and realized that you're a stronger person, a better person, a wiser person, that you have more to give? You know, I'm sure that every person who's gone through any kind of a 12-step program, when they have been in the program for a while and they begin to give back, they recognize what a gift their journey has been, because they are able to then go out and give to others. Our lives, every part of them is sacred. So, there's a story that I want to tell you really quickly. It's of Kuan Yin. Kuan Yin is a Buddhist bodhisattva, and she is known for being like the goddess of compassion. And her entire being is about relieving the suffering of the world. Well, the story of Guan Yin goes that she attained enlightenment, and as she was stepping over the threshold into nirvana, she heard the cries of the suffering of the world, and she turned around and went back to the world. She couldn't cross into nirvana because the people were suffering. And so she went down to the world, and in the world, she tried so hard to comprehend the suffering that her skull broke into 1,000 pieces. And the Buddha created 1,000 heads so that she could comprehend more. And then when she reached out to the suffering people, she didn't have wide enough arms, and her arms broke into 1,000 pieces. And so the Buddha created 1,000 arms so that she could reach more people. You see, she literally had to fall apart. She had to fall apart in order to be able to help relieve the suffering of the world. The falling apart was just as sacred as the life-givingness, the relief of suffering that she was bringing to others. Every part of that journey was a sacred step. There was a talk that was given by Marianne Williams to the practitioner, a CSL practitioner gathering just about a month ago. And she talked about that, she talked about the struggle in the Middle East right now, the difficulty. She talked about how there's polarization happening, how there's people that are looking at one side or the other side, that are supporting one side and vilifying the other side. And she talked about how we need to, as spiritual people, rise above the battlefield. We need to rise above the battlefield and see a bigger idea and know a bigger truth for everyone. And she talked about the hearts of the mothers and the fathers who are holding their children on either side of this conflict, just simply wanting their children to be safe, just simply wanting their children to have a better life, to have opportunities. That love, that wanting the best for your children, that is a part of the sacred flame of love that is in every one of us, that is in the world in every way. That is what has given rise to all of us. That is sacred. And that sacredness doesn't have a side. That sacredness doesn't have a better or worse. It is the allness of everything. It is within the suffering, and it is within the peace. So we take that sacred flame, that inner flame of love, and we know that that is within us. And you know what? When we lean into that, when we rise above the struggle, when we rise above what we see happening in the world, and we just find ourselves in that place of love, then we suddenly open up opportunities to see things differently. We find the third way. It's not just this way or that way. It's not just right or wrong. There is a third way that encompasses all of it. And that third way is the sacredness of love that we are. And when we find ourselves over top of the battlefield, when we rise above it, we can see that love. And we can find the opportunities within that. And we can see a different way. And we can be the different way. And we can bring that sacred life back into the world, because we bring that sacred life back into ourselves. So each one of you has this opportunity to be that sacredness in your own life. Each one of you has the opportunity to be that sacredness in the experience around you. Each one of you, each one of us has that opportunity to bring a greater level of sacredness and love into the world. And this is what our choice is for today. I have one more quote, and this is from Ernest Holmes. He says, it's from the Voice Celestial, and actually it was written by Ernest and his brother Fenwick. He said, the world that seems so foul or exquisite becomes to you what you become to it. The world that seems so foul or exquisite becomes to you what you become to it. Let the world become to you the sacredness that you are. Become the sacredness to the world so that you can be that in the world, and the world can then become that in ever greater ways. So I have homework for you. If you choose to accept it, this is your mission for this week. Ask yourself the question, what has to shift in my awareness to view all things as sacred? What has to shift in my awareness to view all things as sacred? And just contemplate a deeper understanding of what wholeness is, a deeper understanding of the sacredness of everything, of absolutely everything. And so with that, I just love you and I bless you. And I know that today is a good day because you're in it.